They've won 10 of their last 11 games, Kirk, to move into fourth place in the East. Kevin Durant, they've won 6 in a row within that. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have been hitting teams with 1-2 punches. And one of the things I've looked at is the Nets have gone up and down this year. Is I always look at their defense. If you listen to this pod, I'm like, well, they're 30th in defense. Well, then they're second in defense. What actually makes me think that this could be a little bit sustainable is that during the stretch of 11 games, they're 13th in the NBA in defense. That's something that they possibly can maintain. If they were like first playing an easy schedule, I'm like, well, they don't have the talent to be first on defense. This isn't going to hold. But they are number one, they are healthy. Number two, they're getting good play from Nick Claxton at center. They have Ben Simmons in there. So they're never going to be bulky. So they're going to struggle with rebounds. And at the highest level, we can talk about whether we think they're actually going to be able to defend at the highest level against the Milwaukees and the Bostons. But you have to admit that after everything they've been through, and I posited the question in mid-November, whether this team needed to, when Kyrie was suspended and everything was going sideways again, I posited whether they should consider, blowing this thing up, because the swap that they had with the Rockets, this was the most advantageous year to have the swap, and they held it together. And for the time being, we all have to qualify it with everything for the time being, because it's the way this team is. They got it going on. What have you seen from the Nets in the stretch, and do you think it's something that they can hold together?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say for the time being, the volatility is always a character in this saga. But, since firing Steve Nash or parting ways with Steve Nash, however we're saying that on November 1st, Brian, you laid it out really nicely. They're 17-7. Only the Celtics in that time have a better record. That's a pretty big chunk of this season. I think Jacques Vaughn is the name that I'd like to give some shine to right now. I think his influence both as a tactician and a leader, changing the whole vibe there. I think he deserves a lot. And I think he's emerging, simply put, as a coach of the year candidate from taking this bus that was broke down in the ditch and getting it to this highly competent outfit. I think you're right to zoom in on defense. Jacques has done a couple of things. Patty Mills is out of the rotation, Brian. Seth Curry is playing less than ever. And really what I've studied around them is they're going to rotations where there's a litmus test almost. Are you going to help this team on defense and on the glass? And if the answer is no, you're out of the rotation or you're playing less than you used to. So I think Jacques Vaughn is the first person who deserves a lot of credit. Second is Kevin Durant, who's not only shooting and scoring like a demigod, like we've come to expect, but his defensive leadership has been elite. We can come back to that in a second. The third one is Claxton, 23 years old, leads or second in the league in block shots. And along with Durant is a huge reason why this defense has come back from the dead. Let me give you a nerdy stat that I love about Claxton and Durant, these long, lean defenders that are now providing the Nets with sort of a signature thing here on defense. Both Claxton and Durant rank in the top 10 in the NBA in total shots defended as the closest defender. But among the 17 players that have defended at least 400 shots, Brian, these dudes rank first and second in effective field goal percentage allowed. In other words, they're volume shot defenders, and when opponents are challenging them with shots, they're not going in. That is their signature defensive element right now. It's a massive point of pride on the side of the court where they needed one. They still foul too much. They still can't rebound, but they now rank 9th in the NBA in defensive efficiency, as you laid out, since Jacques has taken over. So for me, what I'm seeing is a simple formula emerging. Kevin and Kyrie provide offense, surround them with complementary role players that can get stops and make a few plays on both ends, whether that's Ben Simmons, Royce, TJ Warren is somebody I'm really interested in, how they're going to fit him in.
After 2 years, TJ Warren is playing.
Yeah, the bottom line here, Spears, Brian, is since November 1st, this team looks like a contender, period. From a TMZ headline to a contender, how remarkable is that?
Yeah, TJ Warren is actually contributing, which he hasn't played in 2 years. Go ahead, Spears.
No, at the G League Showcase yesterday, I saw general manager, or what is he, president, Sean Marks. And
I think he's general manager, but if he's president, I apologize for not. I don't know what it is. He runs basketball operations.
Yeah, and Jeff Peterson, I believe, is their GM or assistant GM. And I said, "Oh, you guys look relaxed now." but to Sean's credit, I saw him at Summer League, and he looked pretty relaxed then. But I said, "But no telling what you were doing behind the scenes." But I like just winning cures all ills, man. And they just I just think how like crazy these last couple of months been for Sean Marks. Like,
wow,
probably thought he was going to get fired. And how do you clean this up with Kevin? And then you got the Kyrie stuff. And like Kirk, you said it best, to go from TMZ headline to now is pretty incredible.
Well, what I'd say about the Nets front office is they've been steamrolled by Durant and Kyrie, and they'll let that situation completely run amok. And it has routinely caused massive problems. It has not been the bastion of great leadership. But one thing I will say about Josiah and Sean Marks is time after time after time, this team was close to breaking into pieces, and they kept their hands around it and insisted they're going to keep it together because they had to give it a chance. And in doing that, they had to completely lose their backbone repeatedly. And I'm sure they had many, many days, and they may still have them, where they felt disgusted about some of the things that they had to do. But the team is connected, and they had this whole thing with Udoka, where they were going to bring Ime Udoka in. That was a whole quagmire that they were able to extract themselves from. They put their trust in Jacques Vaughn, and Jacques Vaughn is delivering. Now, the thing about it is that this team is not supposed to be in fourth place. They are supposed to be competing at the highest level with the Boston Celtics and the Bucks, and even the Cavs. Bring up the Cavs because they're in front of them in the standings. Ultimately, if this team is, fighting for its life in the first round, it won't have all been worth it. But as you said, Spears, there is something to be said for perseverance and keeping it together, and they have done that. And so I still don't think it gives anybody a pass for the way this organization has operated for the last few years. But they've stayed in the game. And they are a team that I think will ultimately have some problems defensively at the highest levels. Claxton over the weekend said he should be a defensive player of the year candidate. I think he might be a little bit out there on that, but they could potentially do something to improve the roster, especially if they could get somebody at the center position with size. They do have a first round pick that they got from Philly this year that they could trade. They have a lot of salary on the roster that they could move around. So they have a little bit of opportunity to also improve.
And Brian, I'll say this, because they've righted the ship, they also are a team, and Kirk, please correct me if you disagree, that now at the trade deadline, there's also players that get cut that could be pretty good players that they could consider joining them as a free agent now.
Yeah.
A month ago, I'd say no, but now, yes.
I think that's correct. And if there's one team in the league that has too much shooting, which is something you'll never hear me say, it's like a baseball team with too much pitching. Patty Mills is sitting there getting DNPs. Seth Curry, one of the best shooters statistically in pro basketball, is playing 6, 8, 10 minutes a game recently. They could exchange, to Brian's point, I think if you can exchange some of that extra shooting for some more muscle, I think that would go a long way in helping this team compete with some of the front courts in the Eastern Conference. Some of the big physical teams in Milwaukee and Cleveland and in Boston. Because right now these guys are skinny.
Philly. If the season ended today, they'd be playing Philly in the playoffs. Joel would be licking his chops.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.